Speaking of big money, oof, Wall Street taking a nosedive. The U.S. stock market just saw its worst drop since the pandemic. Experts say fears over the global impact of tariffs shaking investor confidence. Fox 7's Phil Schuman here with more on that fallout. Phil.
Well, Alex, investors and business in general like stability. They like to be able to predict the future, like, no pun intended, business as usual, which with President Trump in office is certainly not the case. So when the stock market closed today, not sure why those people were applauding, as the New York Stock Exchange and other markets suffered their worst loss since before the pandemic. So with the value of investments falling in an uncertain future, if you're fortunate enough to have investments, what should you do? If you talk to most financial professionals like Rick Miller, it's be patient.
Here's what the takeaway needs to be, is that you don't want to sell off the investments and go to cash now, and then be in cash and not get back in the market until it all makes up those gains, right? Because what's going to happen is you're going to miss the opportunities. You're never going to be able to time the market. It's the time in the market versus timing the market that works to your benefit.
So the financial experts, the advisors, the professionals will tell you to look at this time as an opportunity to actually buy, to get into the markets at a lower entry point than before. If you have a diversified portfolio already, great, hang in there. Whether you have investment accounts or not, you're living paycheck to paycheck. We're all looking at higher prices, at least for the immediate future.
Yeah, we don't know how long that's going to last. Let's talk for a moment just about the politics of this. I mean, it's really interesting because President Trump ran on the idea that we're going to lower prices,
right,
and everybody's price is about to go up.
Right, but he somehow thinks that in the long run, which is not defined, that everyone's going to benefit. So that's why I'm interested to talk to this next case.
Yeah, I mean, his point is that there'll be more manufacturing in the U.S.,
right,
which will be more jobs for people in the U.S. This is something he's been talking about for decades,
right,
saying that the rest of the world is ripping off America.
Right.
The challenge in the short term, though, because Trump didn't have to run for re-election,
is that prices are going to go up.
Prices are going to go up, and so if you do have to run for re-election in the House or the Senate, and all of a sudden people are angry, that creates a real political challenge for you. But let's talk more about what's going on here, though. Bring into the conversation Kayla Scallon. She is a financial content creator with 300,000 followers on Instagram, another 230,000 on TikTok. She is the author of In This Economy, How Money and Markets Really Work. Kyla, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sorry if I just messed up your name. Please tell us your name the correct way.
It's Kyla Scanlon.
There you go. All right. My bad on that. And I appreciate what you do, though, which is basically take really complicated financial issues that most people, including me, can't understand. I couldn't even understand how to say your name, so clearly I need help. So talk to me. Do finance for dummies here. What exactly are tariffs?
So tariffs are a tax on imports. So anything that comes into the country will face a tax. And President Trump unveiled these new taxes on April 2nd. And so he has, 10% universal tariff on most goods that are coming into the country, as well as a second layer of tariffs called reciprocal tariffs that are calculated in a way that's a little bit confusing. But these are extremely high tariff rates if they do go into effect. They shouldn't go into effect until a few more days from now. So there's still time for negotiation if that does happen. But tariffs are a tax on imports, and the consumer usually ends up paying the price for that.
So what is the theory about how this will benefit us?
The theory does seem to be that we will reshore manufacturing. So the idea is that it will make it very difficult for companies like Nike to make their shoes in Vietnam. So Nike will instead start to make shoes in the United States. They'll build facilities here, they'll hire people here, and it will be reshoring U.S. manufacturing. Whether or not that will work is a big question mark. We have to also invest in human capital. We have to invest in research and development. You can't just slap a tax on something and expect companies to respond. But the general idea is that manufacturing will be brought to the U.S. because of these tariffs.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's difficult to see. I think that we're all in a land of uncertainty right now. I think that the tariffs are quite punitive and they're quite uncertain, and they're creating a lot of concerns for executives. The Dallas Fed Manufacturing Survey, these are people who are out there in the manufacturing universe, and they're talking about the uncertainty that they're facing and how difficult it is to make investment decisions. And so I think if you look at what actual manufacturers are saying around the concept of reshoring manufacturing, you would be a little bit worried about this plan that President Trump has actually working.
Reshoring is one of these new terms that we've never even heard before until the past few days. So as a young person who tries to educate, I presume, other young people, primarily on social media, about economics and finances, is the younger generation, quote unquote, paying any attention to this? Or is it more for like us older folks who, who are thinking about the future and retirement?
Yeah, a lot of young people. I mean, there are people about to graduate into this economy in May. A month from now, right? And so I think a lot of young people are extremely worried. They graduated into a pandemic and now they're facing, a forced economic downturn from the Trump administration. And they're worrying about what jobs are going to be available, what inflation could look like. Like, things are probably going to get very expensive if these tariffs do go into effect. And then, of course, just the role that the United States will play in the world moving forward as we sort of dangle our superpower in front of our allies and our enemies. Is just not a good look, and I think a lot of young people are aware of that.
Do you think inflation is kind of inevitable with this? And if so, what should consumers be doing right now to try to protect themselves and their wallets?
So inflation could definitely be a problem here. The administration seems to think that either the manufacturers or the companies or the consumer will absorb the tariffs. So the administration thinks that the companies will absorb the tariff costs and not pass those costs off to consumers. However, most of the data around tariffs do point to consumers absorbing those costs. And so if we think about the problem of inflation, this could definitely lead to higher prices because companies are going to mark up their goods in order to absorb this additional cost that the tariff is posing. And so in terms of what people can think about purchasing, if you need a new car, I would definitely try to get one as soon as possible. You could maybe load up on some consumer staples, just sort of prepare. I think things are mostly going to be okay, but any big ticket items that have a lot of imports coming in from abroad would definitely be a smart thing to purchase right now. Electronics, cars, as I said, etc.
It's interesting to think, many decades ago, there was a lot of focus on tariffs back during the McKinley administration, which is something that Donald Trump sees as a role model. But our world is so much more connected financially now, as what they said, Thomas Friedman saying the world is flat. And it's crazy how many different pieces of like an iPhone comes from so many different countries. And we'll see evidence of that now in the weeks and months ahead. Kyla, you're great. Thank you so much for what you do in explaining this. We hope you'll come back. I'll never mess up your name again, I promise. And Phil, you're great as well, and we'll see you anchoring tonight on Channel 13 from 8 to 10 p.m. Tonight, but great to have you along here at 6 o'clock. Still ahead, and new